Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's the Jacked Up Review Show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. It's a Jacked Up Review Show. Jacked Up Review Show.
Johnny Potoky of Attack of the B Movies joins me to tackle two short-lived, campy spy film franchises that are very inspirational in many ways.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I feel like I'm doing more of your shows than I'm posting in my own.
It's all good. I'm kind of the same way with the other podcasts. I've been meaning to get on, and I keep waiting to hear back from them, and I'm just like, okay, let me know, because I record literally every day I'm off.
Yeah, my co-host James is out of commission right now. He's having an issue with his laptop, so he's got to repairs. We were supposed to record on Saturday. We're supposed to do a fantastic Philippine movie called something to do with killing the devil, killing Satan. I don't remember the name.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one.
Does it have Richard Harrison? I'm just joking.
No, I wish it did. I wish it was a Hal Needham production with Richard Harrison.
Oh, man. By the stunt coordinator who did all of the various Vietnam movies, but was best known for doing a little-known Oscar winner known as Platoon. So Derek Flint is a master spy who's been adapted from various comics. And there's two of these movies. They star the lovely James Coburn, beloved character actor and underused tough guy, if I do say so myself.
I got to get this out there real quick. I love James Coburn in a lot of roles. I didn't like him in this role. I like these movies.
No, it's all good.
I just didn't. He didn't have the suaveness, I don't think, in my opinion.
No, it's fine.
But then they were also supposed to be parody, right? So
yeah. And
he's a great actor. I love him in a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong, but
exactly. And I think I will. So basically, these are meant to be a parody of both James Bond and the pulp comic icon Doc Savage of the 30s and 40s. Now, that took some serious research on the latter one because I'd heard the name but never put two and two together. That's one that's been everyone's tried to adapt, but unlike all the other serials like, The Phantom or Flash Gordon, they just have never bothered with it. But yeah, so Flint was pretty much, because it was already a parody of James Bond, it was just cashing in on these franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, it was the era of the 60s, so I mean, it's
exactly.
There were hundreds of these.
65 and 67. The first movie is Our Man Flint. The second movie is In Like Flint. I made the mistake of watching them out of order, but it doesn't matter.
There is a third.
Really?
1976. It was a made-for-TV movie, though, to hopefully get a TV show.
Oh, that's right.
And it was called Our Man Flint, Dead on Target. It's considered part of it as a trilogy, but the actor is different. It's Ray Danton, who played Secret Agent Super Dragon.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And I think I actually think he would have fit the role. I didn't see Dead on Target. I just know it exists. I haven't been able to find it.
Yeah, it was called Derek Flint. That's what it was. Yeah. There was so for those who are out of the loop, there was a bunch of
Kim Cattrall was in it as well. It was Derek Flint still in Dead on Target. But they intermixed it with the Matt Helm series that they were trying to produce too.
Oh, nice.
Because he was a private detective and a former Zawi government agent.
Well, so they're even better. I'm glad we combined these two in one episode. But so for those out of the loop, there was a bunch of Euro spy movies. You've probably seen a bunch of them on Mystery Science Theater or Elvira or Svengoolie. That's okay. That's why we like them, because they're goofy.
They're great. They're goofy and great.
One of them was even rumored to even be the inspiration from either Moonraker or Goldfinger, but whatever. These movies are all cool. Definitely check those out, and definitely check these out because not only did they inspire Austin Powers, as well as the short-lived '60s show Land of the Giants. They've been mentioned in the Beastie Boys songs, Grasshopper Unit. It's just I would always hear virtually. I couldn't go a year without seeing someone post a meme or a picture from this movie, whether it was in a martial arts group. And it shocked me. I was surprised how many people knew it. And I think it helps because, it's in the Fox vaults. And so it was always being played, once a year on either Stars or HBO stations. And
that's where I saw it. I saw them on back-to-back on Stars about, 15 years ago, I want to say.
There you
go.
But
I distinctly remember them. Yeah. And until you watch these two movies and the four Helms movies with Dean Martin that we'll get to later on, until you watch these 6 movies, you're going to think Austin Powers is ripping off James Bond. But in reality, half the stuff in Austin Powers, especially the first one, comes from these movies.
Absolutely. And
the bad, the martial art, the corny, it's all from these. I couldn't believe how much was taken from these movies.
Yeah, even exact frame shots. You can tell people were like, we're going to just pay tribute because this is our whole childhood right here, just watching this every summer. Watching this every week.
Oh, yeah.
So I do kind of agree with you. Coburn, always a likable actor. He's one of those, much like Lee Marvin, where I wouldn't get him mixed up, but I would just instantly recognize his voice. Mm-hmm. I was even watching reruns of Combat, and he appears in like part of the first season as a gun ho dude who's kind of losing it. Yeah, who's also a traitor on the team. But he has
what's his name that was a narrator for Big Lebowski. He's like that.
Jeff Bridges.
Not Sam Neill.
Sam Elliott. Sam Elliott. Yeah, exactly.
No, very similar look and feel. Fantastic, like grizzled, older looking guy. Fantastic actor, but just always character parts.
Oh hell, even Rod Steiger. Yeah, these guys are they have evolved. They're always been unrecognizable. You never heard anything fucked up about them, and yet they've always earned your respect because they have so many roles and giant resume to pick from, and often pretty well used.
They just always nail it. And to be fair, I didn't care for Coburn's look in this film, but he nailed the character.
Exactly. It's like he's kind of going for a sly, sarcastic Sean Connery kind of attitude. But like you say, I don't really get the sex appeal, and I don't. Ironically, while I think I could even gone for Sam Elliott in this. I think he does pretty good with what he's given, but at the same time, he mainly benefits because he doesn't take it serious, and that's exactly how you needed to interpret this role because it's a campy movie. So
right, agreed.
He doesn't do what all the other tough guys would have been, where they just would have been looking very pissed off in every single frame. And you've been like, dude, you do realize what this is, right? Okay, just checking.
So one thing that makes this unique compared to like the Bond movies, and actually a lot of the movies like this, he's an ex-agent that's called back.
Right.
Because in all the Bond movies, except Never Say Never Again, which is an unofficial Bond movie, Bond's a current agent. Let me change that. He quits in
License
the
to
Timothy
Kill.
Dalton movie License to Kill.
Yeah.
Because he goes on a rampage.
Right. He goes all
Punisher.
Punisher.
Which is fantastic. I'm not going to lie.
Oh yeah, I love it.
For years they said Bond wasn't dark enough. Then he got really dark with those two, and they said it was too dark. They brought in Brosnan to lighten it up. And then now we have, then they said, they're like, oh, now it's going to be dark, and Daniel Craig's movies are out. And I'm like, Timothy Dalton did this, and you didn't like it.
Exactly. And it's wild how
Dalton's movies were dark, but they had those super goofy-ass supervillains still, and I loved it.
Exactly. And it's weird seeing how Craig, and pretty much most of his movies, he either has no support or he does go rogue at one point and is deemed a fugitive. Yeah. Where he has to work to where he has to have his guys hack it for him.
I hear the Daniel Craig movies are basically scripts that they threw away from Mission Impossible and The Bourne Identity.
What else could they
be?
I don't know. But yeah.
But that was the difference in these, is that he's an ex-agent and like Super Dragon was too. But he gets called back because there's the threat of a worldwide organization, of course, led by a trio of mad scientists, of course.
And it's
Galaxy.
Galaxy, yeah. and just looking back at that, I did remember hearing that, and the way they said it was even made it funnier too. So it was like, it really is a campy movie made with some serious effort, as
Yeah.
opposed to we'll just see what sticks. It's just, half-hour sitcom that we
And
branched
to be
5
fair,
episodes together.
pulled straight out of today's headlines, the scientists are mad that the world's governments will never improve themselves. Here we are 50 years later.
There you go. And the second movie would definitely piss off a bunch of Me Too members, not because it's sexual, but just because it's dealing with feminist villains.
The second movie they want to throw out the patriarchy of the world and replace it with a matriarchy, and he has to stop them. I don't think it's so much that it's looked down upon in the movie because they're women, but because how they're going about it.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
You
It's not showing them to be sex objects to get what they want or anything like a typical James Bond villainous. It's more just like, okay, we can't stand guys, so we're going to replace them with, robots.
And if I remember
guys.
correctly, they get double crossed by the guy that they're working with, and they end up joining Flint.
And part 2, I think, actually does have some better fight scenes.
Yeah.
Just because there's some better staging and they're still having a fun time doing it, just doing an exact repeat of everything. And it's just the rarity, kind of like in the Red films or hopefully even the future sequels to Kingsman and Hitman's Bodyguard, where it's just like, okay, we know what is working. We don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. Critics are obviously going to hate it, but it's got a cult audience. So that's, it made money. So we know what our audience is, instead of, we don't know what we should do, but we got to change everything up every single time. So this is like, okay, here, we know what works, which is you say it's kind of a Leslie Nielsen and Naked Gun effect. That's exactly what they're doing. It's just, we're going to say a lot of stuff that should be serious, except we're deliberately just making it be ridiculous. And
right.
That's why it's awesome.
I mean, the first one has a cold cream jar booby trap with explosives.
Exactly.
They all work
awesome.
for it. Yeah, it's just ridiculous stuff, It also, you were talking about how far it's influenced. The bad guy, or one of the bad guys, is named Hans Gruber.
Yes,
Michael St. Clair plays Hans Gruber, and just a mere 20-odd years later, Hans Gruber, name-wise, is played by Alan Rickman in Die Hard, and becomes like an iconic villain.
So there you go. I know Stephen E.
Who then has a brother played by Jeremy Irons a couple movies later.
And there you go. And Stephen E. D'Souza and Joel Silver were clearly big movie buffs. So it doesn't.
There's no way they made that name up.
Oh, exactly. And I mean,
no way.
Especially in Die Hard, where they take the final scene from Hitchcock's Saboteur, and that's the final villain death. Is like, they grew up loving movies, but they didn't just do the mistake that everyone did, which is, maybe I should just copy it, or maybe I should just, sample it and forget about organizing. It's like, no, I'm going to watch it multiple times. I know why it works. I know why I love it. I know why everyone else should love it if they haven't.
Yep.
And
there's even Bond references. There's even Bond references in Our Man Flint when he starts that brawl in the was that a strip club? He starts a brawl and so he can meet he starts a fake brawl to meet a patron known as British secret agent, the highly famous British secret agent 0008.
Yeah.
He asks if Spectre is behind or involved what he's chasing, and the reply is it's bigger than Spectre.
Right, and they got away with it.
The ball's on these guys.
Well, and they get away with it because it's also parody technically. But yeah, I know what you mean.
And
At
the character,
time,
and the guy that played 0008 has a very similar look to one Sean Connery too.
Exactly.
Would have been great if they would have gotten his brother.
Neil
Connery, who made 3 movies his entire life, and one of them he played the kid brother of 007 in an unofficial movie starring the actual Q in Moneypenny.
Yes, for those who
an Italian production, I might add.
Yeah.
Oh, and Blofeld. Is it Blofeld that's the bad guy in it? No, what's the other guy?
M and
no, I was in it, but the bad guy is played by
Oh, I know what you mean.
It's not Donald Pleasance. It's the other guy.
It's the other guy from, I think, Diamonds Are Forever. Charles.
Yeah,
Gray,
it's him.
Yeah, he plays a villain in it, and the M and Moneypenny, the same actors are playing the same characters. But yeah,
it's great.
But so
it's
if you guys,
it's horrible and great at the same time. It's much like this.
Oh yeah. Now, if you guys like trashy or just laid back, or even just more modern spy movies like the Eddie Murphy version of I Spy. I think you guys will really dig this. I really think you will.
Oh yeah. Both of these are fantastic. They're great movies.
If you're just a spy
lot of fun.
completist, you got to see it. It definitely plays better than some of the other spy movies we mentioned in the past that were in the 60s, just because there's just a lot of love put into it, but it doesn't outstay its welcome. It's slow, but there's always something happening.
They don't
overplay it.
They don't make spy movies like this anymore. And I don't mean like the over sexualized thing like that or the misogyny.
Yeah, we're not going there, guys.
If you took out like the pretty girls and stuff, I'd still watch a spy movie if it had an actual villain that wasn't like somebody I'd seen in real life.
Exactly.
That's like my problem with all the like Daniel Craig movies. The villain is just like a regular terrorist kind of guy or a thief kind of guy. It's nothing like special.
Exactly.
Except for Quantum. Was it Quantum? No, not Quantum of Solace.
Skyfall.
Yeah, except for Skyfall, and that's the one that all the people, everyone hated. But me, as a guy that likes.
Oh wait, actually, that is
movies,
Quantum.
That's the one I like.
That's actually Quantum.
Yeah, Quantum. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The main.
That's my favorite one out of the new ones.
It's all good.
It's
and
completely corny and off the wall.
And here the other thing is James Bond is supposed to be fun, and it's kind of been more. It's fun, but it's a little less fun because it's just got so much depressing Dark Knight type stuff, and it's like okay. It's
not that it's a bad movie; it's just not Bond to me.
Well, yeah, I'm exactly.
When you're watching the Bond movies that starred before Craig
Brosnan.
Yeah, Remington Steele, Brosnan. You know, he steals a tank in a Soviet base, and he's smiling while he's driving it.
It's fun.
In fact, Triple X was more Bond than most of the new Bond movies.
Oh, there you go. And I mean, even parts of MI5, I would rather, the TV show, I would rather that be the future James Bond, because those guys have very likable casts. I mean, they're doing in many ways they're doing what even the Mission Impossible movies don't dare to do. Each time with Mission Impossible, they're like, toss everyone out, keep Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, and Tom Cruise, but fuck everyone else. I'm like, well, everyone else was good. Why'd you do that?
Yeah. No, so when you have a movie, when you have a trio of movies like, well, I haven't seen the third one. I like Ray Danton. It was the last movie he ever made, I think. And then he retired. So I don't know how he looked at that point, but looking at him in Super Dragon, I think he would have been a great fit for Flint.
So, a lot of these Euro spy guys.
It was only a 10-year later, so he couldn't have aged that much.
Well, that's very true. That a lot of these Euro spy guys, they have a lot of. They're much like all the other guys we've seen in all the other Italian type stuff, like whether it's Giallo horror or the spaghetti westerns. They have they've been in other international or American productions, but they have a very rare kind of, much like Coburn, just a very laid back kind of look where whatever is they're told to say, they will say,
but they say it in the way that's needed.
Oh, exactly, and
which is why I think Dean Martin was tagged for the Matt Helm films, because you look at the Rat Pack, right? And who was the one that was always who was the one that always with a drink, quick with a song, just laid back? It had to be Dino,
right?
Like if I had to pick one of the Rat Pack to hang out with for a night, if I can go back in time, it'd be Dean Martin.
Well, and
he just seems like he'd be the most fun to hang out with. Like he's laid back. He's not. You're not going to worry about him getting a bar fight. You're not going to worry. And then
you're not going to worry. You're not going to worry about him. His mob ties like Sinatra. It's just like
even though Sinatra never sang in Italian and Martin did.
Yeah, what the hell was that about?
I know Italians like, oh, Frank Sinatra. I'm like, he never sang a song in Italian, right? Like, I don't know much Italian anymore. I took a couple of years in school because part of my family's Italian, and I always preferred Dean Martin's music over Sinatra's. Sinatra had a couple songs I really like.
He even has a good
overall,
documentary.
His overall catalog, I enjoy Dean Martin more. It's more swing. It's more upbeat, and that's how Dean Martin was. If I had to pick a second guy out of that Rat Pack to hang out with, it'd be Sammy Davis.
Sammy Davis definitely.
Sammy Davis Jr. would be a fantastic person. It'd be great to meet him.
Absolutely.
But Dean Martin, every movie he was in.
Airport for one.
Well, let's start this way. Every movie he was in after 1965, he basically was the same guy.
And that's kind of why he worked. He made up for whether or not he was, properly cast or miscast by, again, just kind of like Sophie Loren and Gregory Peck, who are in this one campy spy comedy I can't remember the name of. They just blend. They go with the flow, and they are here to remind you, hey, you're here to have a good time. You are having a good time, right? Okay, good. And
I think the actors like that. The actors that have fun making these movies, and even the Bond actors that'll like make fun of them. And there's only one I know of that did it was Roger Moore.
Absolutely, Roger.
I admire them for that because it was a part of their life. They don't regret it, but they don't take it too seriously. And those movies shouldn't have been taken that seriously. Roger Moore was in Cannonball Run with Matt Helms, Dean Martin.
Yeah.
And the best part is Roger Moore's character is walking around saying he's Roger Moore, and his mom's like, "Oh, why do you keep doing this?" And he's got like a Jewish kid's name or something.
Exactly.
And it's so hilarious because he signs everything Roger Moore. He's like, "I know what it's like having a big celebrity in your race."
Oh
but,
yeah,
but no one knows. Everyone's like, "Who are you?"
He's the best part about one of the awful Pink Panther sequels, even playing a.
That's right. I forgot he was in that.
I mean, it helped that he was already the Saint, so I think that's just it. He's like, okay,
what a great show that was. That was probably one of the last. That was a good spy movie when that came out with Val Kilmer.
Yeah, 97 was a good year, and it was 96 and 97 were not short of all the various other spy movies. I even liked
that was a good resurgence. Yeah,
I even liked Maximum Risk and with Van Damme.
Yeah, but I that movie really showed Val Kilmer's like range, to play different characters,
different moments.
He was really good in that. Thanks for yelling, Isabella. That's awesome.
Even Ronin.
Oh yeah,
Ronin was great. That's like the best unofficial Mission Impossible movie, but more or less. So yeah,
these though, I mean, we got sidetracked a little bit, but it's because
it's that awesome.
These movies, these movies, and the Italian ones at the time, and the Matt Helm films later on, were big influences on the spy genre to come.
Exactly, and to have that rare type of just tackling of all this material with this much competency, is to be admired.
But now, like I said that, the Flint movies had a big inspiration on a lot of stuff, a lot of inspiration in Austin Powers. But
yeah, and I know, and once again, like we said, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, James Bond parody." It's like, but it's literally a copy and paste of Flint.
It's actually a parody of a James Bond parody.
And we're not bashing Austin Powers. No.
I think it was fantastic. I love those three movies.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Very underloved. Could not be made today. And once again,
never would be.
Not a comment. Just saying, just with that, going back to even just the amount of creativity. Like I've seen other people do recent spy comedies, and they range from decent to extremely unwatchable, mediocre. Just so
like Spy. I've heard mixed on that. I want to watch it, but I'm afraid to.
Spy was one of those. I didn't mind it, and then since I'm not a fan of Paul Feig with what he did with all his other Melissa McCarthy movies, it was just one of those. Is like when I found out that they actually were going to make it serious, and then throughout the
running around screaming the whole time.
Well, exactly, and then found out, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's just have Jason Statham play himself, and that's going to be the joke, and then have Jude Law be serious but not take it serious. I'm like, so. What you really did is you did what every other stupid sequel did, where you just rush it in production and just try and connect the dots later. That's hackery to me. I don't like.
Was it worth a watch?
Depends. It really does.
He's one of those,
it depends on your
directors that he did Ghostbusters, right? The remake.
Yes.
So I didn't care for it. I didn't hate it. I thought there were some neat things like the different weapons and stuff they had. I thought that was kind of cool.
I did not find it unwatchable, but I really found it pretty forgettable.
Yes, yeah, that's my point. Like
despite Ernie Hudson,
I got a kick out of Thor. What's his name?
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, I got a kick out of Chris Hemsworth in it. I liked that they had the little handheld blasters and stuff, and I thought that the Egon character, I thought she was cast well, but what I didn't understand was why he had to have two women. That are, I think Melissa McCarthy has the potential to be a good actress.
I think she is a good actress.
The other woman that she played, that was the other one that joined later on in the movie. What's her name?
Rose Byrne.
Yeah, I think she's good.
She is good,
but instead of making them like play off each other differently or something, he just like every other scene they were both just screaming.
Exactly. And
now, I mean, so like with you, I don't find it unwatchable. It did serve a purpose because there's a lot, like, you know, let's be honest, like we watched a lot of movies as kids that weren't kids movies. Ghostbusters 1 is not a kids movie.
No,
there's a lot of stuff in there that really kids are kind of like, oh, what are those two doing?
It goes over your head and it lasts not long enough. But yeah,
but so I mean, it got a whole generation of younger people, especially girls like my daughter, interested in Ghostbusters, which is cool, and I give it credit for that. But so Feig's one of those guys where it's like, listen, you could do something. You just need to take a step forward, man. Take one more step. Put a little more effort in. Put down the joint for a minute, you know, and just put a little more effort in. And he just doesn't do it. Like I don't think it's that he doesn't. I think he just hasn't. He won't reach his potential.
He's come from a sitcom background, but that's the thing. All those things were pretty well laid in stone.
Yeah.
And I think he just got a little spoiled. It's like it literally the worst filmmaker could guest direct any of those shows and it would be fine because, you don't have that much creativity.
And I hate to say this because like I love Kevin Smith up until like I wasn't a fan of Chasing Amy, but I loved Dogma. I loved everything before Chasing Amy. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was pretty bad, but it was watchable because it was kind of funny.
Well, and that's just
everything after that point that he's made has been horrible. Tusk, Yoga Hosers,
Cop Out was really stupid.
Cop Out, Zach can make a porno.
But yeah, that was okay. But I mean,
but then he directed some episodes of The Flash and Supergirl, and he was great. But like you said,
because that's his
shows but like you said though, those shows, everyone on that show knows what they're doing.
Well, and when
those shows have been on for years already, so it's like, well, how much acting do you really need to do?
Well, it's exactly because when you're the producer or creator of the show, you get the final say. So, I mean, Steven Bochco had, beloved TV producer, on every crime or medical drama, he would always bring his directors into tone meetings saying, you will do this, you'll shoot it this way, yada, yada. And I think, a lot of people do that, but there's other times where it's like they kind of have unspoken rules. And since everything's digital, if they didn't think you did a good job, you never know unless it's someone very close at a private party. Yeah. And I'm sure you really are only going to hear from the editor who's like, I got to fix this shot because someone filmed this the shitty way. But yeah,
but back to what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, Melissa was pretty good in Can You Ever Forgive Me and Life of David Gell. But yeah, I like
she was good on TV. Wasn't she in
Gilmore Girls and Mike and Molly?
Yeah, Mike and Molly. She was good there too. Like I actually don't mind her. It's just she got typecast in like every role that
she's trying to be the female Jack Black.
It's like I kind of feel bad for her in a sense because like I said, Mike and Molly, she was fine. So there's clearly like potential for her to be a good actress. They just don't want to use it. In Ghostbusters, they could have done it.
Exactly. And
they just,
if you want a fun spy comedy, guys, stick with Central Intelligence. And I know a lot of people didn't want to watch that because they either weren't fond of The Rock or Kevin Hart, but it's actually pretty laid back. And despite the New Line Cinema logo at the start, it is not a,
Hey, they make some of my favorite bad movies.
Oh yeah. Thankfully, this is not another overblown Rush Hour type production. It was a pretty witty spy movie. The Spy Who Dumped Me, I didn't mind, even though there's a few subplots that don't really work. But going into Matt Helm,
I was going to say, if you want to watch a good laid back spy movie, start with Silencers.
So these had 27 books, 28 if you count one that was unpublished but completed, but not
written
released.
By, what's his name? Oh, come on. I know Donald Hamilton.
So there you go. So much like, that's pretty ironic because there's even a Commander Hamilton Swedish spy series that's been adapted various times too. So
what's ironic is that the producer Irving Allen was actually in partnership with Albert Broccoli.
Oh, wow.
And
can you imagine Sean
Broccoli
Connery
wanted to buy the rights to James Bond the Bond novels, but Allen wasn't interested in doing it, so they split. So Broccoli bought the right to the Bond movies and made those, and then this guy's like, "Well, I still want to make spy movies," so he read a copy of either The Silencers. I think he doesn't even know which one he read. He said it was either The Silencers or Death of a Citizen, and was
I
like,
love
"Hey,
it.
I'm going to option these," which was not a bad choice.
Right.
Like this movie was not badly done at all.
Okay. Yeah. Much like how in like Flint.
And again in
had a
this though,
bunch of-
he's retired.
Yeah, that's pretty much my reason for combining the two. They both have
Yeah.
a cult look and feel and appeal to them, and but as well as a similar backstory. But
Hey,
so
what was Austin Powers' cover story? What was his day job? Do you remember?
that's right. It
He was a photographer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What's Matt Helm's? He's a
Well,
photographer.
and these definitely Austin was definitely trying to outsex these movies because boy,
Oh,
howdy.
Yeah. But that was another. Here's two groups of movies that had much more influence than people think, because people watch a 60s spy spoof like Austin Powers, like, oh, James Bond.
Right.
Well, no, not really.
That there's 4 of these adventures. Yeah, the Silencers, Murderers Row, the Ambushers, and the Wrecking Crew. There was supposed to be a 5th one called the Ravagers, but Dean was already lacking the interest, so that never happened. They could easily reboot it now. And
and let's be honest, Dean Martin was. I mean, at this point, he was old.
Right.
Like, right, because like no one thinks about it, but Dean Martin by the 1950s, early 60s, he had to be in his late 30s, early 40s already.
Oh, absolutely.
He'd been making movies since like the 40s.
And much like Irwin Allen, he was pretty much attaching himself to every big budget blockbuster, regardless of, script, doesn't matter. It's a big effects thing that everyone's going to see. My face is going to be on the cover and I'm going to be paid, a lifetime's worth. So deal. And,
but he did look like he was having fun making them.
oh yeah.
He looked like he enjoyed the character.
His shit-eating grin is just perfect. This is every guy's fantasy. If you're going to watch these movies, watch them with people who are into cult stuff. If you're not taken back by them, you might want to get hammered or high and just.
He died at 78 in 1995. So he had to be almost 50 when he made these.
Oh shit! So, hey, he didn't mind hanging out with all these gorgeous people.
No, I wouldn't.
This is a guy's fantasy, but at the same time, it's
Dean Martin's fantasy.
Well, exactly. It's kind of a laid back sexual fantasy, but it's not. Definitely don't watch these with other people who are all over the top and stuck up. But at the same time, check them out. If you're spy completist, you got to check them out.
Don't put today's values into them.
Oh, there you go.
Right, because that's the biggest mistake we make. We look, as a society, we look back on history and we say that's not right. You know what? You're right. It's not right. But 200 years ago, or 300, 400, 500 years ago, they didn't think it was. They didn't think that way.
Exactly.
So hindsight's always 20/20, and that's the same thing with any movie made in the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, whatever. There's lots of great films that were made that, there might be some questionable things by today's standards, but you got to take that with a grain of salt. And that, I think, is what society needs to start doing a little bit.
Exactly. These play for me as less well-dated versions of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but with just as much camp, maybe even full-blown camp. Like,
that was a good movie too, Man from U.N.C.L.E. But anyways,
I like the show. I know a lot of people like that movie. That one for me
didn't do it.
I just feel like the leads had no charisma, but I can understand why people like it. That's a like it or hate it kind of movie.
Yeah, okay. But this one, I mean, and to be fair, this one is also much more serious in nature.
That's what's weird about him.
It's very aloof the way he is, but the plot is much more serious than in like Flint and Our Man Flint, because it revolves around like this bad guy who is completely stereotyped.
He gets seduced.
Asian guy, wanting to drop a missile on an underground atomic bomb test in New Mexico to start a nuclear war. I mean, this is like a Bond plot.
Right. It's very grim, but it's also very over the top and silly. Like, he's either seducing someone or being seduced. So it's definitely would be R-rated by today's standards, but it's also, and that's funny because you're not seeing anything explicit. It's just because it goes on just, excessive, but I saw these on cable on KTSR, which is the Sony cable TV station. It's one of those in-between things. They show a lot of stuff from the movie and TV Sony vaults. But long story short, yeah, these are definitely. I feel like Flint is kind of the better movie, but these are kind of more just.
They made these quick too, because the first two were made in '66, then '67, then '69.
Exactly, they're very rushed. So I think
they're like, he's almost 60. Quick, get these out.
Yeah, do not watch these looking for a detail-heavy plot. Watch these for escapism. That's really all they really work as.
Much like an early Bond movie.
Exactly.
No, let me correct that. Not like an early Bond movie. Much like a Roger Moore Bond movie.
There you go. So it's kind of like
Diamonds Are Forever.
The camp is like 1,000 out of 100. It's really just there is a plot, but
you have a plot dealing with a nuclear threat to have a nuclear war, and then you have this giant amount of camp. It's like
exactly. It's Skinamax without the.
It's definitely a yin and a yang that you're like, this shouldn't go together, but it works.
Right.
It's like peanut butter and chocolate.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up though too, because
peanut butter and chocolate.
Well, before that, I mean, it shouldn't work, but it does. But no, the peanut butter and chocolate actually is a good segue. Take two different meals that you like. They don't have anything to do with each other than that they're both excellent meals. So exactly, this is take two different types of junk food or two different entrees or two different complete meals. What's a good meal? For me, it'd be, spinach pizza and, well, the best taco on the planet. Just throw at me what you got. That to me is a good meal. So if I ate that, a dozen of those back to back, this is if you want to just be a glutton for not only punishment, but also just excessive food, just overeating, but the best kind of food to overeat. It's just being a total pig. Pig out, enjoy these movies, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're pigging out. They're giving you a lot of what you want, so it's excessive, yet so a lot of the stuff is, I wouldn't say it's dumb, but it is kind of dumb. Like, do not watch this realistically. Because it's not trying.
Go along with your food analogy. It's like this: a serving size of Oreo cookies is like 3 cookies, right? Everyone assumes the serving size of Oreo cookies is the center sleeve.
That's true.
A serving size of the bag of Doritos is like 14 chips. Everyone eats the whole bag. That's these movies.
You have to. I mean, it's exactly it is. It's just like,
I know this is bad for me, but there's just something about it.
That's a very good way to put it. It's like,
I think a big part of that is Dean Martin's performance.
Dean Martin's
performance and the camp is. I mean, the girls. Okay, I'm not gonna. I don't want to be like a sexist, but the girls are nice. Okay,
they're
but really watching Dean Martin in his. It really seems to be like his element.
Exactly.
And you almost wish they had made these if they weren't written 10 years earlier, but you really almost wish they had made these when he was in his 30s.
Exactly. And I think the rush value.
Don't forget the second one starred Anne Margaret.
Oh yeah. Ooh, man.
And I love Anne Margaret. I remember even watching her years later in Grumpy Old Men. I was like, oh my God, she's awesome.
Yeah.
She's a great actress and she's so pretty.
Rare kind of talent, and this is definitely the kind of movie.
At all.
Exactly. If you have pals who get together for kind of event where you're all going to overeat or play sports in the backyard,
Doritos and Oreo.
Oh yeah, there you go.
The guys you're talking about would be nachos and chicken wings.
I actually don't have those kind of friends. They're more kind of just do a mix of beef and rice and other kinds of entrees. But
that works too.
Yeah,
we're talking like tacos. That's cool. I'm on board.
Right, and a mix of Tex-Mex and Italian, just the works. So, but no, that's a good point. Just Doritos and Oreos, but then added on with an extra layer of any kind of ice cream that is universally beloved, and then with a top filling of, basically 5 different pizza chains. Let's just put that out there. So,
wow.
You got Little Caesars, you got Domino's. I can't do Pizza Hut, but I know many who swear by it. So there you go. Put that in there. It's going to taste good, and then it's going to hurt the next day. Perfect. Boom. Put that in there.
Another interesting side note about Murderer's Row was it starred Dean Martin and Anne Margaret. It also starred Dean Paul Martin Jr.,
really?
His son, who was a pop singer and film and television actor.
Who did he play?
Who was also a member of the California Air National Guard.
Was he one of the supporting villains? Or
It just says he was listed as cast as himself, and same with Desi Arnaz Jr. I think they were just listed played themselves. Sadly, he died. Sadly, he died in a plane crash because he was a military pilot, military flight training.
Oh, bummer. So maybe that had something. I don't want to speculate. That might have.
No, I think he died after the movies. I don't.
Oh, okay. Oh, phew.
No, not during it, but then Desi Arnaz Jr. too. So
Jeez. So yeah, Dean. I mean, there's a reason he's the former celebrity roastmaster. He pretty much approaches it as this. He shows up, he talks some smack, and then he kind of invites people. He was a handsome-looking guy.
Well, they did blow up a poster of Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin's character Matt Helm says, "Sorry, Frank."
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this is one of those movies. They've tried remaking it. They've talked about it for so long.
They tried a TV show.
Yeah,
there was a TV show in the 70s, I think.
They tried a show, and I think that's also why you cannot replicate it. It's because they knew just how to approach this. They rushed it out, so they got it done. Whatever ended up in the can, and most of it hit. Most of it was kind of just too silly for its own good. But it's one of these are the kind of movies. They're not classy. They're very lowbrow, but you're not going to regret watching them, especially if you're a guy and you're a cult movie fanatic. It's just that kind of movie.
Especially if you like Dean Martin too.
Dean Martin.
I mean, let's be fair. He's good in it. And honestly, I think you can do this movie now, because I think the problem has been first off, I think these movies were more comedic than the books were, from what I read. So then the show, I think, was more.
So that explains why they've never been able to interpret it right, because everyone's familiar. It's kind of like James Bond.
It's kind of like
we're familiar with the big screen image versus what's in the books, which is not funny.
But I think you can. I don't think the first one was too outlandishly funny. Like I said, the plot. I mean, it kept the same plot and everything.
We're right. It's kind of just more. Yeah. Don't. Okay. So those who've been listening, I'm not saying it's funny as in it's unintentionally or
it's not like a Naked Gun. Yeah, it's not a Naked Gun or like Austin Powers.
But it's the case. Ironically, it's the same kind of audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's not the same tone, like you say, but it's kind of a parody where. Okay, so think of a parody where you're just being yourself instead of I gotta take famous scenes from movies. So that's what I can't stand is today's world. Everyone's just familiar with what they did in, Hot Shots or the lesser scary movies, and it's like, no, we're talking actual parody where there is an original plot, and it's kind of winking to various pop culture things.
Yeah, it's more giving nods.
Exactly. You got to do the homework.
It's more like, hey, all this stuff's in here because this influenced me to make this movie.
Exactly.
Not, hey, all this stuff's in here to show you how dumb it is. No. It's
kind of dumb in a way where it's just like, it's just very just out there, but it's not in a way where, obviously guys don't show this to your girlfriends. They're going to hate it. They're going to say that's fucking stupid. I'm like, well, that's
oddly, my wife and daughters watched it.
Oh, what did they think?
And they had no problem with it.
That's so weird.
Well, my daughter's 8. My one daughter's 8, right? The other one's 2.5.
If I showed
she
this,
didn't care. But my wife, she's like, this. She's like, who is this? This isn't bad. I'm like, no, it's Dean Martin.
If I showed this to any of the gals in my family or anything, they'd be like, yeah, it's softcore porn. It's like, yeah, it kind of is, but it's less. Without the graphicness, it's kind of the.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, though, too, right? Like for us, it's like, well,
it's kind of meant to be.
It's
sarcastic.
it's like a 5-minute, like, oh look, they're walking into the room and the door shuts. Okay, we know what they're doing.
Right. Movie 2 or free. There's like a big ass soapy bubble bath, for God's sakes. It's awesome. It's stupid, but it's awesome.
But if you're gonna watch Austin Powers, you're gonna see that in there too.
That's just too. And so
it's kind of like yeah. That's why I think it's the same audience.
Exactly. Every guy should watch these. Don't call yourself a guy if you haven't seen these. You're gonna want to see them anyway. But at the same time, if you're just the snarky, stuck-up kind of prick who's just like, oh, I hate anything made before 1980, then you're already the wrong audience for this.
I hate anything that doesn't have a Sundance stamp on it.
Right. Oh, Robert Redford didn't approve it. How dare they? Yeah.
Nothing that's come out of Sundance in the last 20 years has been worth a shit, but whatever.
There you go. If it doesn't have 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm not watching it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it.
Right. Even though you know secretly.
Go back
you
to your
do love-
mom's basement, turn on your Linux machine, play your D&D. No.
I believe the Star Trek even number exists. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Fuck you. So long story short, I'll let you rate. I'll let you rate these first. Go ahead. How would you rate in like Flint movies?
Oh, I mean, it's tough because like the movies, the Flint movies themselves are both pretty good. The Helm movies themselves, the first two are good. The third one is pretty lacking, and I like UFOs, and it's got a UFO in it, and it's got a dude named Jose Ortega, and you know, it's like Mexican UFOs. I don't know.
Right, playing on the fears of the 50s.
Hang on one second.
Okay.
So and I like that, but they're definitely, the third one definitely has more like insensitive quote unquote stuff, like the Montezuma Beer Brewery is the, you know, there's Ortega. It's like
Yeah, there's some dated stuff in there that isn't going to fly with every crowd.
Although if there was a Montezuma Beer Company, I'd drink it. The movie after this one was better. Sadly, it didn't do well enough to. I don't know if it didn't do well enough to make a fifth movie, or if Martin was just like, my hip's gonna break if I do another one. You know, I'm not really sure. I mean, because the fight scenes with Dean Martin, I mean, it's Dean Martin. He's cool and all, but you could tell he was aged. You know, Coburn was definitely more fit for the role that he played.
Right.
I enjoy Dean Martin over Coburn. I enjoy the Flint movies over the Helm movies.
That's pretty much where I'm going. I'm going to give 3.5.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
You know
totally.
what
It's totally it. It's exactly where I was going with that. The Flint movies, for me, they're up there with the Naked Gun, even Police Academy movies. Just
Yeah, I mean, I think the Flint movies knew what they wanted to do.
if you love
And they
Austin
went for
Powers, you can't not like this. You're going to at least like one
Yeah.
of the two. And so I'm going to give them both those a 3.5 out of 5. They are definitely must sees. Maybe a 4 if you really love the entertainment value and you've grown up on it. I totally understand that too.
I think the Helm movies, the problem is that I don't know how comedic the books were. I've been told they're not very comedic, and I think that even these movies, they didn't quite know what route to go.
It's exactly
They tried walking this line between, and it worked, but it wasn't a perfect fit.
I'm totally with you. I'm going to give those all a 3 out of 5. There's moments
I'd go with that.
There's pros and cons in each one, but at the same time, it's kind of more of it's a dreamy movie. It's a 2 a.m. movie nowadays. Just watch it, sit back, escape. Just escape.
Although the third one is considered one of the worst movies, one of the worst 50 movies of all time.
Oh dear.
But by who? You know.
Well, and it's
by Harry and Michael Medved. Kiss my ass.
In all fairness,
like movie critics are these people that are like, oh, I enjoy thespian. Fuck off.
It was.
I enjoy movies that make. You know what I enjoy? I enjoy movies that make me that I enjoy.
There you go. They were probably.
I don't care how bad the actor. You know what movie I like? I like Far Cry by Uwe Boll. Is he a good director? No, he sucks. Was the movie fun to watch? Yeah, and Anthony Bourdain gets gunned down in it.
There you go. And I like some of these movies that play on Elvira for real, regardless of the riffing. So there you go.
Same with the Mystery Science Theater movies.
Absolutely. There's some of them. It's like they're goofy, but they're not offensive bad. They just
they're just
they're not unwatchable.
I mean, one of my favorite Bond movies is Live and Let Die, and another one of my favorite Bond movies is Diamonds Are Forever.
There you go.
Those are considered two of the ones that people don't like.
Exactly, because one is blaxploitation era, back in the era when it was more infamous because people couldn't bother having social issues read to them, and it's just like, okay, well, it's still can
like
make
how
for good entertainment.
he was driving a pimp mobile.
Right, that was awesome, and the boat chase and
the hillbilly sheriff, the racist hillbilly sheriff.
Oh yeah, that shit had
But that was such a dig at Americans though too. Like he's a suave British agent. He's like, I'm better than you, hillbilly.
That's why it worked. And see, everyone's like, oh, but he sided with the devil. It's like, no, he worked with a shithead who he needed at the time. He did what he did with any spy or assassin. He gained their trust, used them, and then dumped them when he didn't need them.
It amazes me how many people in the world don't realize how the behind the scenes of the world is not what they think.
Well, there's that, and
It's like, what do you think a spy walks around going, "Hi, I'm Sterling Archer, super spy"?
No, of course not. And
Oh my God, Archer might be one of the best parodies of all these ever.
well, I'm glad you bring that up. You definitely see his influence in Matt Helm, although less violent or sexually abrasive. Just kind of more just, that was meant to be for Adult Swim, so it's kind of more.
Well, what's great is that Archer is somebody that grew up watching. Well, he grew up watching. His big thing is Burt Reynolds movies.
Exactly. So there you go. The character is designed,
but the character is like half Helms and half
Bond.
Leader.
there you go. And he's with some Flint type violence. So
and another half Flint. He's got three halves.
And some occasional Tarantino dialogue minus the F-bomb. So yeah, it is kind of that. It's that kind of uncanniness that makes it work so well. So I mean,
and really, in that show, you see a lot of the influences from these 6 movies,
right? And
7 movies. Sorry,
Helm is the kind of character it could have worked for anybody. Really, it could have actually worked had it had Reynolds or Clint Eastwood or even
Eastwood. Eastwood, you would have had to make it more serious. Eastwood couldn't pull off.
I'm talking back
in
the. Well, I'm talking more back in the '60s, like if he was in Kelly's Heroes mood.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I agree with you. For the most part, he would have just probably been a little self-indulgent and called the shots, and it would have been a mixed bag for everybody. But
if you could do a Matt Helm TV series, I think right now.
Please.
But the problem is, like, who would you have be Matt Helm?
That's a wonderful question. You could probably do what they did with the recent Perry Mason, where it's its own thing and related mainly loosely in name only, or you could.
No, but like, who would you have cast as him? Is what I'm saying. Like,
and
it's a tough one.
It really is.
It's funny because they're doing the Uncharted film, right? And they cast
Tom Holland from
Tom Holland for Nathan Drake, and everyone was against it. And I'm like, well, hang on a second.
We don't even know what he can pull off
yet. He plays the right kind of character, right? Like the personality in Spider-Man is very similar to Nathan Drake in many ways. I've played all the games. I mean, he's cocky, he's arrogant.
And we're in the age now where everybody, the minute they hear something, they have to instantly say, fuck that. No way I'm watching that. But really what that means is...
I looked at it as the way I look at Batman. Did I like Ben Affleck as an actor before he took over Batman? No. But you know what? I'll tell you something. His Batman's one of my favorite. Because he nailed Bruce Wayne pretty good, and he was a solid Batman. Because we had this discussion before, I think you and I, that they either pull off Bruce Wayne or Batman. Most don't do both.
Or you can go by what I call the Law and Order effect, where, bad actors can still look good, with the proper direction. And Law and Order, apparently the rule was, according to some of the actors who worked with what's his name, who played Lenny Briscoe, Jerry Orbach, you get 2 takes, kid, and that's it. So that's just it. Sometimes, regardless of your talent or how limited or diverse you are as a performer, sometimes, again, the magic just happens, not just because there's enough to pick through in the editing room and the director said, okay, 20 takes, we got it, move on. It's more than just that. Sometimes it's just everybody brought 100%. Like, I'm not a fan of Shia LaBeouf, but I thought everybody was really good in the war movie Fury. And I know some people don't like that movie, and I get it. But
I haven't watched it yet. I know what movie you're talking about.
Yeah, but then there's other ones. It's just like sometimes. So again, we don't know what Holland is capable of.
What they released a set picture of him dressed as Nathan Drake.
Yeah,
standing on the set in like from a scene, and you know what? I looked at it and I'm like, he's got it. And here's the thing: this first movie is the origin story. The origin story, he's younger. Holland's in his mid-20s. He can keep that role. Play 3-4 more movies.
Well, exactly, and all the people
because everyone's like, oh, Nathan Fillion. You know what? 10 years ago, if they made the movie when they were supposed to, yes, Fillion would have been great.
Exactly.
But now, I love the guy, and he made that short film for it. But I mean, he's gonna do what? Maybe 1? Because he's got to be in his 50s. He's older than I am. I know that.
Exactly. I think it can be a reasonable success, like the last Tomb Raider they did with Alicia Vikander. But
I love the last. Did I watch the last one? Yes.
Yeah.
The last
with,
one was much more like it was much more like the video game, the new video game.
And
the new Tomb Raider video games been fantastic.
Instead of just doing cheap, diehard Indiana Jones knockoffs, just try and outdo those formulas. There's a reason I went and saw all those Olympus Has Fallen movies in the theater. There's a reason people like
you were bored? No, I'm kidding.
No. I fucking love Secret Service Save the President movies. And that says a lot because even how reality is a lot of these guys have their demons. So, but in Air
Well,
Force
to be fair,
One,
reality-wise, the Secret Service is cannon fodder while the president escapes.
oh, absolutely, no one knows their name or even honors them at the end of the day. Does that happen? No. It's, that's actually why I like. There's a reason I keep rewatching all the seasons of 24 or Air Force One. It knows how to show that not everything is gray and white, and Tomb Raider was cool because it was Die Hard on an island with, again, the Indiana Jones type of traps. And most movies get it wrong where let's just imitate exact frames. Let's have a villain who's named after a famous henchman in some Lethal Weapon movie. Let's have an exact recapture of the Indian. Let's have a bigger rock almost crush the person. It's like, no, come up with an absolutely different maze. Come up with something that would make the Minotaur in, Greek mythology jealous. Do something different. But
so interesting. Sorry to derail.
Please.
Or actually, I'm getting back on track. Interesting note about the last Helm film, The Wrecking Crew in '68. Sharon Tate was in it. It was the last film she released before her death.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's right.
It also debuted in the role as action choreographer behind the scenes, Bruce Lee.
Woo!
And Chuck Norris in a small role.
That's right. Yeah, he's like one of the fighters or dojo guys. I think. Yeah.
It's so funny that there's this giant there's this big controversy with fans between, well, Bruce Lee was the greatest fighter ever. He can kick Chuck Norris. He can kick anybody. Here's the thing. They were actually friends.
I know.
When Bruce Lee was in Hollywood, they trained together. Chuck helped them out to with the acting. They were buddies.
So if you
they
want
didn't hate each other at all. So the fact that you're saying who would kick it doesn't matter. And then the Bruce Lee fans are always like, well, he beat his ass in that movie. I'm like, it was a Bruce Lee movie.
Well, exactly.
Of course he's going to win.
If he had been on an episode of Walker, would Bruce have won the fight?
No.
No.
They would have slowed everything down so Chuck could have arthritically kicked him.
They're all fun. They're all entertaining for different reasons, too.
Now, that being said, Chuck Norris, you could find video of him competing in tournaments that he won. He was like one of the first Westerners to win certain tournaments and all this shit. You could find video of this. As far as I know, I've never seen video of Bruce Lee fighting anybody.
I'll even go further.
Not to discredit the guy. He was the first MMA fighter.
Well, there's that, but there's also they've all lost a fight. That's why they got good. So
yeah, you become the best by getting beat by the best.
It's just like when people say, I was looking up a list of all the movies, Tarantino is inspired by, and half the time people are like, oh, those movies are garbage. I'm like, yeah, but that's why he got so good. He loves everything, whether it's good or bad. So he mixes it together and he makes the bad movie good or the good movie even more excellent. So there you go. But yeah, with these, yeah, Bruce, he definitely had to lose some fight or at least a street fight to be good. Chuck, he's definitely been known to lose some fights before he got good.
But you know what part of Bruce's allure is, and because I have a buddy like this that wholeheartedly believes like all the Japanese folklore about like magic and stuff, right? Like, they're like, well, how else could he have one punched the guy and he flew he flew like 5 feet or whatever? I'm like, do you not watch like movies and like, do you not understand how special effects work?
Right.
Like,
CGI, dude.
He could have did his 1-inch punch, which probably hurt like hell because the guy was ripped. Don't get me wrong, but once he hit the guy very easily could have just like thrown himself backwards.
Oh, exactly.
No, you don't really know. And but I think that was part of his allure was he was from Asia, where where mythical and folklore and fact are all blended together, right? Like there are people that think like samurais with samurai swords could cut through a machine gun barrel, and it's like you can't.
Right.
You both tested it. You can't.
Yeah.
There's all these stories
off.
or flying ninjas and all this. It's like, so
Right.
I think part of the allure was he was one of the first really popular Asian stars.
Well, to mix along his wisdom,
And he created a martial art. I mean, again, not taking anything away from the guy. He was the first, what I consider MMA fighter, because he learned like 2 or 3. And to be fair, everyone thinks Chuck Norris was a karate guy, quote unquote. He knew, like, he learned Taekwondo in the military. He learned karate in Japan. He learned something else. And then he melded them together also and made his own. So
Well, and
both of these guys are very talented.
right. They were competent as opposed to, and they were good at what they did. And they weren't just, like Seagal, where he knew enough people to fool, and that's how he got his career. So, I mean, again, Chuck was the canon guy, and loved doing all the Rambo type knockoffs before he had his show.
Delta Force.
Right, before he became
USA. Oh, God, I love those.
Exactly, before he became the Steve McQueen.
Nothing's better than sitting down with a few cheeseburgers, a supersized soda, and watching good old USA movies.
There you go. And seeing all these other just goofy.
See, I tied the food thing back in. You like that?
You have to, man. These movies are junk food made with love, for lack of a better word. But and I mean Bruce,
and that's how these spy movies are.
Yeah, exactly. And so Bruce is kind of much like, I think the closest we have to him now is Keanu Reeves, but I mean, in terms of he likes
25 years ago, watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I would never have said that.
No one would have ever thought it, but yeah,
what a super nice guy Keanu Reeves is too.
Exactly.
The guy takes a subway still. The guy, I mean, and then you watch video of him training with like SWAT teams and stuff.
Yeah.
If there's an invasion of this country, I want to be with Keanu.
Everybody does. There's a reason they've offered him a superhero role. They've offered him superhero roles, but he doesn't need to be. He already
had one. I mean, really
yeah, Constantine. That's right. Yeah.
Well, not even that, but to be fair, John Wick and Neo are superheroes.
Neo is absolutely, like we talked about before, a superhero. But I mean, he gives this kind of rare dedication that early pre-fame Van Damme did with Bloodsport, where he knew how to mix in the, you only stop to further the plot and foreshadow what's going to happen next and be deeper than even the Karate Kid, and then share this wisdom, and then the rest of the movie is next fight to the next. The action tells what's on the screen, as opposed to gotta have all these like later day Van Damme becomes much like later day Bruce Willis and Stallone, where the ego is out of control by that point, where
so is the coke habit and the wife beating.
Exactly. Yeah. So now that you got the infamous real life,
they've had some other problems,
right? Yeah. Much like,
well, at least lately he seems to have humbled himself by like having that show on Amazon making fun of himself.
Well, exactly. And now he used
to take himself way too seriously.
Exactly. Now he's at the Resurgent. Now he can laugh at himself. I mean, now he's in all these goofy kickboxer remakes playing the sensei. So yeah, it's a rarity to see that, but I don't really know who else can do that nowadays, other than I think Carl Urban and Frank Grillo definitely have a spy movie overdue for them. I mean, for fuck's sake, Carl was the bad guy in Born Supremacy, as well as the bad guy turned ally in the first Red movie. So I think he is definitely, after seeing him on The Boys and all these other shows and movies.
Yeah, who was that again?
Carl Urban.
Oh yeah, you know what? Carl Urban might be able to do a Matt Helm, but
so there you go, guys.
He might. Well, if you take it a little more serious, he can do a little bit of comedy in there.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
He because you watch him on Almost Human.
And I love that guy.
Exactly, and even he's actually the only guy who anyone would approve of seeing in an Indiana Jones reboot. God forbid, but if you had to.
No, there's a few other ones I could pick, but I like Carl Urban.
Okay,
I think he'd definitely be on that list. He'd be on the short list for sure.
But Frank Grillo, everyone acts like he's just the serious guy or the bad guy. He can do a lot of good anti-heroes, and so seeing how a lot of his movies kind of have a lot of neo-noir or crime elements, much like if you've seen Willman on Netflix, as well as some of his other movies and shows like Kingdom and his brief run on The Shield and Prison Break. But I mean, everyone mainly knows him as one of the, is it Crossbones? What's his name in Captain America 2?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he can be guys with different layers or who can flip to do a total 180, and you see it. You're not surprised when it happens, but you're still surprised at the same time. It's like, okay, I was thinking you'd be a suspect. Okay, now you proved me right. And now it's awesome because now I want to see you take on this different persona. So,
you know who I think could pull off that character too? For a Matt Helm's character, it'd be a little younger. He's got the suaveness, and I think he could do the comedy because he did some stand-up. I don't know about the action scene so much. Donald Glover.
Yes.
Like if you watch, like his stand-up was pretty damn good. I've seen one of them, and everyone trashes the Solo movie. I think I enjoyed that movie, and him and Enric were great, but he played Lando fantastically, and Lando has that suave spy feel to him.
Exactly. Billy D did plenty of detective movies throughout the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think if he can do a good job copying Leno, he can definitely do a good job doing a spy. And he's overdue for his own franchise after not getting.
I think so. I think he's a fantastic actor, and I think he's a nice guy.
And he's a good comedian.
Yeah, I think he's a solid comedian. I agree.
But he's the rare kind where you can take him serious. You know, when he knows how to switch around the different personas instead of, I'm only as funny as the movie, you know? And I think what we're going for, guys, here, we need people who can just kind of, again, like years ago, I would have probably said Joel Edgerton or Aaron Eckhart, but they're getting up there. So I'd just rather they do, you know, the last few dozen, you know, Man on Fire, Taken type, you know, revenge dramas they've been doing for a while. So yeah, we definitely need.
You mean the next ripoff of Spartan?
All right.
Like, no one realizes Val Kilmer did Taken before Taken was out, except it wasn't his daughter; it was the president's.
Right, and by that default, they're pretty much ripping off, David Mamet. So there you go.
What a role for Kilmer! Like, I remember watching that movie, going, "Oh my God, he just broke that guy's arm in half."
I know, man. It
was like that movie was brutal.
Well, and
it was good.
Yeah, and it was a rare movie where it was like one of the first movies that like tanked and like instantly was on pay-per-view around the same time it was on all the movie channels. And then like all these other festival movies back before they embraced video on demand, it was like it only took like a year and a half for it to be on regular cable.
It was actually really good.
I know, and that's the sad part is
same like with the movie Basic with Sam Jackson and John Travolta.
Yeah,
what an amount of twists and turns that movie took.
Exactly,
even up to the very end.
And most people would not give them the time of day because, both Basic and Spartan, you know, were by already kind of infamous companies like Original Film and Franchise Pictures, and you know, it's the rarity where in the machine, you know, they're actually greasing the sides really well before they unleash it. And it's like, this is not a bad movie, but
the acting was good. I mean,
I've seen a lot of people even trash it recently on podcasts. I'm like, I'm sorry, we're gonna just have to agree to disagree. That how is this 13%? I mean, you had so many nice things to say before you ripped it a new one. It should at least be a 50 or 60% instead of. I mean,
Travolta was good. You had Travolta, Sam Jackson, Tim Daly. Yeah,
it was another
bunch of actors, and then Spartan was basically Val Kilmer on a rampage to find the president's kidnaps. How relevant is that movie today with human trafficking? That movie was about the president's daughter being kidnapped and sold into slavery or
and
sex
you remember
slavery.
It because
there were twists to that too, because she was kind of a wild child and stuff. So at one point the CIA was kind of like, well, you know, if you don't find her.
Exactly.
Like, there were parts in the movie where you're like, wow.
They had the rare kind of subtext, and some of the plot twists
it was ahead of its time, realistically.
Absolutely, and some of the plot twists you kind of see coming, but they're still effective, if that makes sense. It's kind of, it reminds me of those Tom Berenger sniper movies where you look at the title and everyone's like, okay, lowbrow, but when you actually watch them, they are actually competent, you know, Tom Clancy type military movies.
And the way Val Kilmer played the role, he was very cold for most of the role. He was very much Iceman from Top Gun, not like Val Kilmer from Real Genius or whatever. He wasn't even Val Kilmer from The Saint. He was basically a pissed off version of Iceman in Top Gun. He
if anything,
very stoic in a lot of the scenes, and when he was kicking the shit out of somebody, he didn't look phased at all.
Well, that's just it. It's the rare kind of movie where the camera leans in on the detail and manages to make the cliche look real. And we need more movies like that where enough of the same coordinators who are also, you know, storytellers and have enough, or at least at the end of the day, they can at least, if they're not referencing the better parts of First Blood or Die Hard, they can at least reference neo-Westerns. Like Yellowstone is, I think, a perfect example because Taylor Sheridan, the same guy who brought us, you know, Sicario and a bunch of the other movies, he knows how to portray tactical stuff on screen, make it interesting, while mixing it with all the character drama that drives you to say, okay, now I want vengeance, just like the character, instead of let's just be all over the top. You can't take any of it seriously. It's all Kill Bill, deliberately over the top. You know, it's these movies are kind of both these movies you mentioned take the best elements of all the movies they grew up loving. Like Aaron Sorkin, for instance, would probably not exist if he hadn't seen every courtroom thriller, like, you know, A Few Good Men, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
Not a Few Good Men, 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember watching that with Jack Klugman.
right, or All the President's Men or Network. If he hadn't watched those, he probably would not have a career. But he knows how to take the best elements of those and add his own voice. So the same thing with David Mamet. He knows how to take, he's done every kind of movie, every kind of script edit job, and he knows how to add his 2 cents while also give enough for the filmmaker to do whatever they want with it. And he's actually done his own goods, you know, self-conscious stuff. So all our filmmakers are getting older. I do hope that there's some other guys who someone can give a chance and say, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to allow you to make this kind of movie, you know, instead of,
I hope so. I hope it doesn't go like the music industry where all the good
yeah.
stuff is like not on the radio and you have to kind of like dig for it.
right. It's good at 2 a.m. I haven't heard that.
But yeah,
since
I like how we always get sidetracked so badly. Does that happen with any other co-host? Or does that
Yes.
happen with any other guest? Oh, it does. Okay,
Yes, but that's fine because
but
we
back
are bringing it all around. We're showing you guys these spy movies really do complement what we love in good and cult movies of today's world. So if you guys have not checked them out, please do yourself a favor and check them out. You won't regret it. Your old man or your grandfather, if they're still around, might have seen it. Watch it with them.
It'll give you guys something to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. If anything, if you're already a film history buff, these are definitely essential because you want to at least track down these rare.
Yeah,
hard
just
to
because
find
just
cinemas.
because of the future influences alone.
And these do occasionally come on antenna channels, much like the Euro spy movies. So, yeah, I mean, if you got 2 hours to kill and you still got the cable box, just set the DVR to record and watch it on a night where you're free.
Yeah. Oh, I would also say, as I mentioned, Donald Glover. I would also say his co-star Alden Ehrenreich. I can't say his name, but probably pull that Matt Helm character off pretty well too. Because he pulled Han Solo off all right.
I thought he was pretty bad in the Age of Adeline, which is already kind of a lighter hit fantasy movie.
I
but
didn't see that one.
I didn't really buy him as Solo, but I understand why people like him. It's a
Yeah,
fun movie. It's a fun heist movie. Oh, better yet.
I mean, it's hard to fill the role of like.
Wait, I know.
Better character. But
What about his other solo mentor? How about Woody Harrelson? I know
old.
I know he's older, but couldn't he at least be like the Q or the M?
Yeah, and oddly enough, I really liked Woody Harrelson in the Solo movie. Like a lot of people said he was one of the problems with it. I'm like, really? I actually thought he was pretty good.
I don't understand that at all. Woody Harrelson is always the best part of every movie.
Well, I don't know if I go that far, but no,
I have yet to see a
Harrelson
role
could definitely play that.
Jeff Bridges, before his recent health scare, he'd be interesting early on. Like I'm talking 8 Million Ways to Die era.
Yeah.
I don't think Pacino would work for this. Definitely not De Niro. But surprisingly enough, I could see someone like early Denzel Washington, maybe early. Who's another tough guy? They're all dying out on us. Val Kilmer, like you said, is a good option years ago, back when people.
Yeah,
still
but I mean,
wanted
current to do it now, current actors, it's slim pickings right now.
Yeah,
Like the top 4 like most popular actors in Hollywood all have Chris in their name.
There's that, or like you say,
You know, so it's like-
they have to have been in at least 5 different franchises. I think Will Smith could still play it off well, but
Matt Helms? Yeah, I think Will Smith could do it.
he's not going to because he's,
but
he's got Scientology and the worst agent. But he definitely would be a better pick than, say, Tom Cruise, who would, again, all you would see is just Tom Cruise. You wouldn't see
Tom Cruise running.
Right. He just has too many cliches to his name. I'm not saying his movies are bad, but I'm just saying you have that totally different typecast.
Who's the actor that was the co-star in Ant-Man? His buddy.
Oh, Michael Pena.
Michael Pena could do it.
Yeah, because Michael.
He was also in. I hate saying this and admitting this as an adult. He was in the Dora movie. That movie's fantastic.
I've actually heard good stuff about it, but yeah,
it's actually really good.
Now that you bring up that,
they even make fun of they even make fun of the cartoon aspect of it. It's great.
Michael
Pena, I think, could do it.
He could. Better yet. Yeah, because he needs to do something else besides just be the side chick when he's already proven.
I think he's got some potential to be really,
What about Don Cheadle?
I like Cheadle. I think he might be a little past the prime for that.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair.
I like Cheadle a lot, though. I always have.
There's this other guy. Speaking of Michael Bay produced adaptations of cartoons, like with Dora. How about Will Arnett? Because I saw him in those Ninja Turtle movies. He's definitely
Will Arnett's he'd be.
Even though he's also
it depends
up there.
it depends how many you want to make, right? Like
right.
I actually like Will Arnett. He's a nice guy, so I could see him doing it too.
If it's a short-lived kind of, better yet, have David Cross and his other Mr. Show guys.
Oh God.
have what's his name was on Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, have them write it and have Will Arnett just be the star.
Here's the question. Here's one for you. You were talking about old detective movies and stuff, right?
Right.
A remake of Colombo starring Mark Ruffalo.
Yes.
Like, how perfect would Ruffalo be to play Colombo?
And years ago, no one could see it, but I mean, go back to before he was well known. Go back to The Last Castle. Go back to Collateral. Yeah, he could do it.
Yeah, he's got his, and I actually think Michael Pena could pull that off too, because they look similar enough to me that
in fact,
like, I almost mix you two up.
Better yet, that's so true too. But they are pretty similar in how they take on everything, and yet everyone knows who they are, and yet the studios still, unless you've been in a Star Wars or superhero movie or even Star Trek, we're not gonna greenlight your next project because we don't know who you are. Or you have to be a comedian who has some influence and has to be running the show.
Mark Ruffalo and Michael Pena and Matt Helm are starring Matt Helm's Duplicity. One's a clone of the other. They're both Matt Helms.
There you go, and they do a Mission Impossible where it's a face swap. They make themselves.
Well, I figure they're both a clone, and midway through, and one's a bad guy, one's a good guy, and then midway through they join up.
Okay, there you go. Better yet, for those not convinced,
much like Sully's Last Patrol.
Yeah.
I'll have to put together for that.
For those not listening, it's a fake fan film we came up with basically we're all having ourselves be played by famous people.
I'll do a longer treatment. We'll see if we can get it made. Maybe not with those actors that we picked.
Yeah, some of them might go for it because they do only independent Redbox type stuff.
I think Estevez might.
Joe, I have a good contact with. Joe Estevez will definitely do it. Don the Dragon Wilson will definitely do it if you know someone who knows him. More or less, the Colombo. If for those not fooled by that, watch. I can't recommend the movie, but watch In the Cut with Ruffalo, who plays a private eye. Totally has it down to a notch. He has all the subtleties that make a good private eye neo-noir worth watching.
And he's a very unassuming looking guy, and that's how Colombo was. Colombo always played this like, well, I'm an idiot.
Exactly.
Like he always acted like he was like,
oh gosh.
And then at the end of the movie, he was like, or at the end of the TV episode, he was like, oh, by the way, and he'd have the whole thing figured out.
Exactly.
He looked like he sounded like a bumbling drunk, and acted like an idiot. But he was it was just such good. It was so good, and it would be hard to recast him because Peter Falk was perfect and played the character for like 30 years.
It was a
rarity. But I look at like Pena or Mark Ruffalo. I'm like, those guys could do it.
Exactly. Now we would unfortunately kind of cheat, just like how every other tactical video game movie has pretty much become just kind of a Taken Born Identity type knockoff. If we had to do a modern day Colombo, it would be arguably more like Rockford Files or
Mannix.
Right. Oh, Mannix. There you go. Yeah.
Ironside.
There you go. Ironside.
We're gonna do those next time. But
reboot a classic detective show.
But before we just keep going, we totally should. Before we just,
I'm surprised Zoom hasn't kicked us off. So I'm gonna let you plug yourself, and then we're gonna hang up.
Yeah, Attack of the B Movies podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Attack of the B Movies. You could find us at Potoky Creative, which is ptkycreative.com. You could find us on numerous other podcast platforms. Some that I didn't even know we were on. I know we're on iTunes. I know we're on I think we're on Spotify still.
Hopefully back on Podbean soon.
Yeah, well, we haven't posted anything recently because we've got a lot of them in the can right now. I got one to edit. I got one to record. The new location we're going to be hosting from, it shouldn't affect any of the links because it's still going to. I'm still going to copy the feed onto my site. The guy that's supposed to be working with me on that, he just finished editing a documentary he did, so he's finally gonna have time to go back to the podcast. So that'll be good. Yeah, you know, I got a couple of things in the work. I've talked to my co-host about starting another podcast where we I don't have a working title for it yet. John and James
You have quite the resume.
invent
there.
the world.
Okay, there you go.
And we're gonna we're hoping to start one where we do what you and I just talked about, recast bad B movies and say what could make it better. Basically is what the idea is. So we'll see if that gets off the ground in the new year. That's what we're aiming for.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'd like to have you on, of course, you know.
Please, man. Just I can do pretty much any weekday. I'm bored shitless.
I'll bring my headset to work. We'll do it there. But yeah. So thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I love coming on here and talking to you. I love talking movies.
Likewise.
And especially when it's not like art house stuff or like blockbuster stuff where everyone's like, oh, did you see the latest Avatar? No, I already played Halo.
Yeah.
What do you mean? The color palette's the same as Halo 3. Watch the movie, play the game.
I've been too busy watching all 6 versions of Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm on my 4th iteration of Blade Runner trying to see what how much the extra 3 minutes makes the movie different.
I'm the same way. I still got to get through all 3 different cuts. Anyway, so yeah, we will tackle more cult franchises, probably some of the ones we even mentioned here, definitely on a double feature. So for those of us, yeah, you can still follow us on all the social media. We're all out there. We all get Plenty of Other hosts. We guest on Plenty of Other podcast networks, which please, Horrorpedia and Legion have us. You can have us too, please.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
Ah.
We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
Ah. Ah.
all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Yeah. don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be a
could you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With a one-liner plot holes and gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Hi everybody, it's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. Pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant. 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series. an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.